Can't see.
Our last speaker is Larry Treas. He's telecom engineer. And he's coming from Oklahoma. So thank you.
I do have a country drawl, so you might not be able to understand me. But thank you for having us. I have really enjoyed Barcelona, running around in the subway system for the first time, and the signs are really excellent for a country boy. I wanted to start off with a couple things since I'm the last one, but I saw some things that were threads through almost everybody. And by the way, none of us knew what the other one was going to give theirs on. Do what? I didn't. So, of course, we talked about security through several of them, but there was another thing was, who are we? Where are we going? Who do we listen to? What is it going to take to get there? Things are changing rapidly. We talked about that. A written plan, managing challenges, where are the risks? And again, the environment is changing rapidly. So my discussion today is on some things that I am seeing that I started thinking about too. Mobile World Conference, everybody's here and everybody's trying to do business with somebody else. Some questions will be that were brought up in my presentation is, are the people asking the right questions? Are they knowing how to partner and do other things? So we're going to talk about the U.S. cellular enterprise market, basically competing against the big four in the United States. But we can extrapolate some of the same things in here that I'm talking in anything that we do in business. So the first thing is, some of the things I saw in doing some business with some international cellular companies that were trying to get into the United States market is, they didn't seem to understand what the U.S. market was really about. They didn't understand the size of vertical markets. They didn't understand the plans that were available from each of the carriers. And they didn't understand the buying habits of the U.S. enterprise customers. So let's get some statistics. Everybody likes statistics, right? So in 2015 in North America, there were 282 million smartphone users. As you notice, at the end of 2016, it increased to 324 million. Okay? In the U.S. alone, it went from 200 million up to about 223 million. So if we're going to be getting in the enterprise market, we need to know what employment is, right? So there was 159 million employed, and I say employed, if you look in the bottom right corner, there's a census that's taken every 5 years. We'll have an update mid-year 2017. I know that number is going to go up, okay? But for this, the results here, so there's 51% of the total population that has smartphones. So going through some calculations, and I can't go into all the details, but in looking at knowledge workers, information workers, and knowledge workers would be consultants, higher level people within the organizations, attorneys, things like that. You're looking at about 30% of the workforce for all three of those areas is about 47 million. And you first think of that and you go, this is a great opportunity. We're going to come to the United States. We're going to get the business. There's all this business to be had. But there are still more things that you have to, that needs to be understand, because many of the people in the United States, this is becoming a global society, right? So we're going to travel more. So we want good rates when we travel international. And we don't want to have to change out the SIM and do other things. We want to make it easy. So if we look at some of the statistics here, and this is statistics only from U.S. traveling abroad. This isn't from everybody traveling to different places in the world. And you'll see that 50% from the U.S. go to the Europe area. And then the next is what? Asia, I can't read it in here, 17%. And then you've got North America, but if you look a little more detail, the next slide, North America is Canada, Mexico, and some other areas there. So we could look at this and go, okay, so if we're going to be competing with the U.S. carriers, we better have some good international rates to these particular countries. So today, that's only 34 countries. But, you heard that, but? That always means there's other variables involved, right? One thing is we can't look at just business. You would first think, yes, look at business, but Tom doesn't do this because he talked about this here. But how many do business when they're on vacation? Almost everybody gets called, gets pulled into, there was a meeting, I need a report from you, what is it? So basically, this is the small number, but there's another number around 70 countries. That's a second group, total countries. If you look at AT&T and Verizon, and you look at the total countries worldwide, it's over 200 countries. Okay, so if someone wants to compete in the United States as international, they better know the market. And I've learned that most do not. So I put in some other interesting things that people don't think about normally if you're looking at coming to the U.S. market and wanting to sell to people traveling international. How many international travelers are there? There's an old number that's been out there for a number of years, about 10% of the people travel. That's growing, okay? And I don't know that it took into all the other statistics or areas. One is employment when they travel, or I say employment because I have some law firms and they have offices in Paris and other places. So those people are normally stationed there a year to 3 years, okay? Then what about military? I have a son-in-law in the military, and they've learned how to do lots of things with the phones and to call back home and do FaceTime and all those things so we can see the grandkids, you know. Then what about, does anybody know what HNWI is? High net worth individuals. So those people that have more money, the statistics are they travel about twice a month. Okay? And there's a pretty good number of those. Okay? And then NGOs is non-government organizations. So if someone's coming here, what are the markets available to them, and how do they want to attack that market? Okay? So let's get into some more statistics. So I have a case study here of some statistics that we pulled from a source I have that has AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint. Okay? It was over a 12-month period. It had 516,000 records a year, 43,000 average a month. And so we looked at some of the things. We all know that data is becoming the big area. This shows that 9%, right at 10%, used data when they were traveling international. Oh, that kind of follows the 10% rule, right? Okay. What's interesting is that 2.54% is under 1 megabyte. Does anybody know how much, if you happen to download an app or update an app, how much that could be? Anybody? 30 megabytes?
This is nothing.
Oh, nothing to you?
This is nothing.
But then 11%. So if you look at how many megabytes, and you look at how a carrier is charging for that, Verizon charges by 100 megabytes, $25 per 100 megabytes. AT&T used to have 120 megabytes for $30. Now it's 200 megabytes for $40. Why did they give these 100 or 200? And then AT&T had another one that was 400. Then they had an 800 megabyte plan. Why did they pick those plans? I bet they weren't so that we could get the best deal.
No.
Okay? I bet they knew that wherever they knew the statistics of where people most of the time used the megabytes, and they knew they would get a higher profit. Okay? So if someone's coming in, does that particular organization have the right statistics and or understand their pricing scheme to fall in and do the same thing? I threw these other numbers here, and as I thought about it, it's not as important as I wanted to make it. The key would be is if you took the total number of users per month and divided this, you would get this number that you'd think would be the middle of the bell curve. Guess what? It's not really a bell curve here. If you look at all the information on data, it's very high at the beginning because there's so many more users that are using very little data, and then it swoops down like this. It's almost an upside down bell curve, and then it moves over out. So you have a lot of people on the low end and high end, but you have a lot fewer in the middle. So it's kind of an upside down bell curve. Okay? So let's talk about voice roaming. It's interesting here, 148,000 records per month, 12,000, per year, 12,000 per month. What do we see different here? We see almost 30% of the devices use voice. Wait, what? We said the 10% rule? Now, my statistics, it's just of a group of companies. Maybe that's just the way the statistic fell. I don't know that. But I have to be thinking what's going on here. Again, 1.4% is less than 1 minute. What were they doing? Hi, Mom. Bye. I'm okay. Gotta get off. And I could draw this out, both of them, I can draw the statistics out even further to see where the usage and where things fall in the bell curve. So if someone's coming in the United States, and I helped a company in Toronto a couple years ago, and we looked at that, and I said, well, here's where you're at. Your pricing needs to change so that you're in the bigger sweet spot, so that you ensure you make a better profit and you can cover more customers. Okay? And then again, we could go through statistics, as we said, on the data side. So let's go into a few more things that, in breaking down the data from here, is that you got to know your market. Are you going to go after one carrier? Or are you going to go after all carriers? Guess what? As this says here, T-Mobile users have higher messaging usage. AT&T users have higher data usage. Each carrier is different on how they use voice, data, and messaging. Okay? So again, you got to know the market. So then how much voice, data, messaging do each of these travelers use to attack the plan strategically, tactically, versus I hope I go get the business? And then what are those sweet spots? Some additional things. What I learned too is international, and doing my business, international carriers, many of them have ranges. We had ranges in the 90s where you would look at mileage range and you would have a different cost, right? That's not what the U.S. wants. It may be cheaper that you have that here, but it's too confusing to the people trying to make the decision in the United States. It's got to be simple. It's got to be similar to the kind of plans that we have there. And then the other thing we learned is that these carriers were not negotiating regularly with their roaming partners. If you're not negotiating probably and re-looking at your rates with them on a bi-monthly basis, you're probably going to be left behind. Because things are changing fast. I look at it the last 5 years, and it actually started happening with the new president of T-Mobile, I'll say that, is that changed the whole U.S. market, and it changed the pricing international as well. And what it's doing is it's continued to change those on a almost bi-monthly basis. Okay? So, and then these companies didn't have a trusted expert. They didn't know who to partner with. They hadn't performed their due diligence. okay? And they didn't create a attack plan. They just hoped they could sell to somebody and hope that they would buy that, not knowing if their pricing was in line or not. Okay, I think I may have missed that, but yeah, I don't see it, so I'll just go on. So the question is there any questions or answers?
So we can now open a debate.